let me tell you something. Black men are not going to show up in droves and waves voting for Donald Trump. They're not. And it's because they know who he is. This is the man who took out a full-page ad in the New York Times saying that the Central Park Five, these young men of color, should get the death penalty.
That was Georgia Senator Raphael Warnock this morning on NBC's Meet the Press. Senator Warnock directly addressing Trump's long history of racism. But in this election, it's not just Trump's history that's giving voters pause. It's the potential future of discrimination that he and Project 2025 would bring to this country. Now, take a look at what that means. Because if Donald Trump wins and if Project 2025 is implemented, it would eliminate safeguards that protect black workers, weaken the political influence of black communities by undercounting them, increase the use of racially discriminatory legal policies like the death penalty, jeopardize black families' access to affordable housing, and among a whole host of other things, threaten the reproductive rights of black people. All this according to the Thurgood Marshall Institute. Now, with us now, it's my pleasure to introduce Janae Nelson. She's the president of the NAACP Legal Defense and Education Fund. So, Janae, one thing out the gate here, there's a lot of, hyperbole, right, around Project 2025, a lot of realities, a stark reality, but a lot of concern, right? I want to cut through all that and talk about what black voters especially should actually be fearful of. Not just this moment of we got to win the election, it's crazy, but the reality of how bad things could be if it's implemented.
Yeah, let me say first, it's not hyperbole. This is a disastrous manifesto that would take us back decades, if not centuries, in terms of the progress that we've made on civil rights, on constitutional rights. This is a threat to democracy, and it is a specific threat to black people. And the Thurgood Marshall Institute at the Legal Defense Fund issued a report that analyzed Project 2025 for its impact on black communities, because as much as people have been talking about it, they have not really focused on what it will mean for black communities specifically. And you talked about some of the key elements of it. There's an effort, first of all, to give unfettered power and discretion to the next president of the United States, whoever that might be. And in doing so, that upends our checks and balances in our country, the safeguards that we have to make sure that the executive branch does not have unlimited power and authority. It takes us to a state where, along with the Supreme Court's decision on immunity, we would have basically a dictator in charge of our country with no safeguards or guardrails to protect the governed. And for black communities in particular, there are issues around data collection that are deeply concerning because there's no way to really enforce civil rights laws. There's no way to demonstrate discrimination if you don't have the data to do so. We rely on data in all of our cases and all of our advocacy. So by not allowing data collection, that automatically puts people at a disadvantage in vindicating their rights.
Jenna, as you're talking, Charles Tremaine just had this very interesting interview with Phil Agnew, who literally has been on the ground in communities all across the country for years. And one of the things he said is we already live in the dystopian world that they say Donald Trump will bring. And it sounds to me like Project 2025 seems scary and like hyperbole to folks, and they're like, but our lived reality is already like very terrible. And I wonder what you think about that assertion.
We have not seen anything yet at all. And I want to be clear, Project 2025 is like a loaded weapon on a table waiting for any elected official, not just the president, to pick it up and use it, right? So it is something that is a playbook for any state, local, or other official. And yes, we are in a dystopian moment, but it is nothing compared to what Project 2025 wants to deliver to the American people.
So I appreciated you calling out some of the overlooked aspects. And I looked at Project 2025 ad nauseum, and I hadn't really thought about the data collection. And that's a really important thing to reflect for the black community. But I want to talk about the reproductive rights question. We've talked a lot about reproductive rights, about black maternal morbidity. Project 2025 has a lot about menstrual and abortion surveillance, and this would exist within the backdrop of a health system that already has enormous inequities that are visited on communities of color. What does that mean for the black community? I know the LDF has already had a lot to say about this at the Supreme Court in an amicus brief filed in the Mifepristone case just last year.
That's right. So with respect to reproductive justice, if we think about black maternal mortality and the fact that black pregnant people are likely to die at a rate that is 3 times more than the rest of the population. If we think about the fact that 57% of women, black women who are of reproductive age, live in states that either have an abortion ban or are likely to have an abortion ban. And we're talking about 6.7 million black women who would be in places where they could not have access to abortion care, and there would be limits on their ability to travel to get it, and also limits under Project 2025 to receive mifepristone or any other abortion pills via the mail through the Comstock Act and other prohibitions. And remember, the Comstock Act is from the 1800s.
1873.
1873, precisely. And the idea that this is just going to be normal or it's not going to make the situation much worse is really just a foolish idea to anyone who's actually looked at the 900-plus page document, which we have.
All right, Janae. Civil rights attorney is a civil rights attorney. I'm taking off the glasses because I'm talking to a lawyer.
Oh, serious, Dan.
Look, we know that as civil rights attorneys, strategy is everything. We did not get to Project 2025 without there being a long-term strategy in place. Regardless of what happens on Tuesday, there has to be a strategy, one way or the other. There has to be a strategy around organizing. If we see an opportunity to do so, there has to be a strategy around protection. If we see an opportunity to, or if the need arises to do so. One of the frustrations I've had has not been seeing a long-term plan come from the left around that. As a civil rights attorney, can you talk to me about what that actually looks like going forward under either outcome?
Absolutely. And I'm so glad you mentioned this because some people have the false idea that, you know, depending on the outcome of the election on Tuesday or thereafter, that this is going to go away.
Right.
As I said, Project 2025 was not written in invisible ink. It is not going to disappear. It is going to still be a pregnant threat to the American people and especially to black people. In terms of a strategy, we need to look at how we got in this position in the first place. We need to understand how our democracy has frailties that have allowed us to be on the brink of disaster, and we need to plug those holes. We need a strategy to rethink so many pieces of our government that have failed us. A dysfunctional Congress, a compromised Supreme Court. There are so many particular ways in which we've allowed our democracy to run away from us, and we cannot afford to do that. And black people have been sounding the alarm on this for, since time immemorial. We lost a critical piece of the Voting Rights Act, which has led to gerrymandering and led to other incursions on the right to vote that make this a very anti-democratic moment. And if we wake up and recognize that this is not the America that we have been building for the past 250 years, and we need to seize this moment and take it back and continue the project of this multiracial democracy.
That's well put. I think that we all have to understand that either way, we've got work to do.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right.
Well, Janae Nelson, we appreciate you.
Thank you very much. This is always a pleasure to speak with you. Thank you very much.